Good afternoon and welcome back to Gulfstream Park. Thank you for joining us here on Gulfstream today. I'm Gabby GAUDET, joined by Andy Serling, post Fountain of Youth Day. It was a fantastic day yesterday. Obviously, handle-wise, it did very, very well. Over $24 million there. You couldn't find a spot around here in terms of attendance. There were so many people out here and so many impressive performances as well.
Who says racing's dead?
Yeah.
Certainly couldn't tell
That's
that.
not a valid
we didn't know it was
question
dead
anymore.
by what was going on around here yesterday. I agree. It was a day that lived up to the billing, and that's always nice. You know, you have a big day coming up, and just everything fell into place, and then a lot of people had a really good time. As you say, we saw some terrific performances.
Beautiful weather yesterday as well, and Catherine Sophia, oh boy, what a filly she is as well. We saw some fantastic performances from XY Jet, Mohe Men, Catch a Glimpse. A lot of nice races yesterday, but 12 races today, and it's going to be a tricky pick six sequence, and I think a couple of the sequences today, this is a tough card.
They're all tough.
I know, but this
it's
one
fun
is
though.
even.
Well, you know, it's interesting. We saw a lot of short-priced horses winning yesterday.
Yes, it was
I
horrible.
don't think you're going to see the same type of situation today. And you know, sometimes there's very tough long shots to have, but somebody has them, and that's the beauty of Gulfstream. Is there's a lot of opportunities to come up with sort of clever, goofy horses and maybe get lucky and make a score with one good opinion.
Yes, as a racing fan yesterday, obviously it was a very fun day. As a bettor, probably not. There wasn't a lot of value today. I don't think that's going to be the case. We'll take a look at some of our featured wagers, though, and our carryovers today. Race 1 kicks off the rolling super high 5. It also does kick off the early pick 5 for 50 cents. As we get into race 7 on the card, 20-cent rainbow pick 6 does start, and that is over $2 million there. As we get into race 8, it does kick off the late pick 5 for 50 cents. We've got a lot of ground to cover, so we'll roll right through this. Race 1 kicks off the early pick 5. Let's see your ticket.
I have a ticket. How did you know I had a ticket?
Ah.
I'm going to use the 3, 4, and 6 to start it out. 1, 3, 5 with 1, 3, 9. I am singling a horse in the 4th race. I was not surprised to see you pick Belle Citron on top as well. 2 horses in the last leg. You know, I'm interested a lot in this first race today because I think a lot of people feel that Prague is a likely winner here. And I'm not against Prague. I picked Prague second. I know you had this horse on top, and I think he's a horse to beat, but I don't know that it's as simple as Prague in here. I'm very interested in the 4, Buongiorno Johnny, who you have picked second here. This is a horse I was interested in last time, and as it turns out, he ended up getting onto a rail that really may not have been the place to be that day. It's a little bit vague. It's hard to read for sure, but I'm going to say the rail was off that day. He broke about 3/4 slow, so he was behind the 8 ball from the start, and I'm going to take a shot with Buongiorno Johnny to beat the favorite Prague.
And you make a very solid case for him. I thought he ran a very good race chasing the likes of Defer Heaven 2 starts back, who came back to win, or to be very impressive in his subsequent start there. But yes, Buongiorno Johnny probably not on the best part of the track last time out, and also he did get off to an awkward start if you go back and watch the break too. I think he's got a lot of upside. I respect him here. The 3 Prague, again, coming off of that sloppy sealed performance last time out. If he gets to his back form, I just like the fact that he has that early speed that he could use to his advantage.
No question. He's the horse to beat, but at least with Buongiorno Johnny, I've got a horse that's got enough speed that he could be close.
Okay, we agree pretty much on the top 3 horses there. We'll move on to the second race, a maiden $50,000 event. 6 furlongs onto the main track here. And the 5, Raphidian, I thought was interesting because this horse is a horse that came off of a very, very long layoff last time out, really didn't show up that time, and now takes a big drop in class. What do you do with a horse like this?
I think he's going to be a heavy favorite. He feels like an underlay to me in here, but he's the horse to beat. This is just a big drop down for Kieran, and he didn't run that badly against better horses relative to these, that he's the horse to beat. But I don't know how good he is, and I don't mind taking a small shot against him, but he's a must-use.
He's a must-use, in my opinion, as well on that class drop alone. You and I both decide to beat him, but with 2 different horses. The 3 Howlin' Mad Smith is one of them for Nick Zito. The blinkers come off, and he's a horse who did face maiden claimers in the past, and if he can duplicate that race, I think he should be okay.
You know, it's the last day before I head back to New York, and I feel I have a right to pick some of my buddy Nick Zito's horses today because I get accused of picking too many of them. They're probably right, but I think there's a case to be made for Howlin' Mad Smith. I'm not in love with this horse. I just think he's a decent alternative in here because if you look at him, he had no shot last time, and he kind of dropped dropped over the inside. He was way against the field, and that was a day you didn't want to be on the rail. And 2 back, I thought he ran okay. He didn't break that sharply that day, and he just kind of moved up, and I don't like he dropped over the inside in the stretch. Thought he ran well enough in that race. He has a chance to beat these horses and be a square price. I'm not in love with him. He's my alternative. I looked long and hard at your horse, ultimately thought against it, but this is a horse, at least in the dam side, that does seem to have some dirt pedigree.
Yeah, I think this horse is probably going to take a step forward getting to
Gloves
the main
off.
the 4 gloves off it, getting to the main track today. And I think it's interesting that even after a disappointing performance and debut, they still keep this horse at like an upper level maiden claimers. They don't take a drop. They're trying a new surface. And Terry Pompey does a very good job with these types of horses. I found an interesting stat here over the past 5 years with turf to dirt, especially with sprinters, about 22% out of a 23 horse sample size and a positive ROI. They finish in the money a lot of the time too. So I feel like you could at least back yourself up. This horse is 15 to 1 on the morning line. I got to take a shot.
No, there's nothing wrong with that. And your opinion on these long shots is frequently very good, whether they win or not. Source, they're pretty good. And this seems like a reasonable race to take a shot.
Race 3 on the card, maiden $16,000 event, 7.5 furlongs onto the turf, and we have Chia Ghost in here, who does attract the likes of Javier Castellano. Now today, we'll go back and take a look at the most recent replay.
You know, I want to show it for 2 reasons. Obviously, Chia Hall, the Chia Ghost, the horse to beat in here, but you know, Camerton Hall, and I feel like I liked Camerton Hall last time out. I thought this was a disappointing effort by him. She just sort of. He was one-paced kind of closing. He had his chance, but he really just, he didn't have that oomph. And the thing with Chia Ghost is you have to ask yourself how much of a difference you feel that Javier is going to make on this horse, a horse that has speed, tough to rate. The rider last time, 7-pound bug rider or not, I thought rode this horse very, very well. I'm not sure how much better, but maybe just the sort of stronger, more experienced hands will ultimately help.
But even with that, though, I just think that both of those horses have had several chances. I took a stand against them pretty much completely and going in a different direction here. But Javier, by the likes of it, you see a 7-pound apprentice into the hands of Javier. Yes, it could be a positive move here, but you just never get value on horses like this. And I just think this horse has had his fair chances in the past.
I agree. And I also feel as though if you're having these lower percentage apprentices, but if they get the horses to the front, you know, and in this case, I thought he rode this horse very well. He nursed him along, and he did everything right. You know, maybe Javier a little stronger, but it's not. You're not going to get compensated in price. I think you have to use this horse to play against. I was a little interested in your horse, Whites, in their eyes, and had this horse, the 9, in my play as well.
I'm hoping Terry Pompey has a very good day today. The 9 Whites of their eyes.
It's a girl power thing for you.
Girl power thing, absolutely.
That's touching.
Primarily because look at the drop in class. Yes, this horse is coming off of an April layoff. There are question marks. We haven't seen him since April, but he has speed, and he ran against a horse like Element, who's proven to be just okay. And the primary reason why I like this horse is because he is getting a class drop, but he has speed, and I do think that he could really use that to his advantage.
I'm going to use this horse. The problem with his speed is that you've got Chia Ghost in here, so I'm not sure how helpful it's going to be.
He has the outside controlling position.
Yeah, but he's going to have a speed in front of him that he's got to deal with. So that doesn't, I don't know, you know, I'll be interested to see how this horse runs later. Listen, I'm using this horse. I'm not going to let a horse like this beat me because, look, I put Tempiento on top in here simply on the significant class drop and getting back to the turf. And I'm just hoping this is one of these cases, and we've seen it here a lot, where a horse that's just taking the appropriate drop just finally beats them. Because the horse that I don't want here is the horse that you picked second.
And I didn't know what to do with this, but don't you have to use, don't you have to
for me.
Protect yourself a little bit with these George Navarro horses?
Responsible people. Well,
yeah,
I have a stat that I found fascinating. First of all, George Navarro was just 3 for 16 overall, maiden special weight to maiden claimer. Now, that means he's 3 for 9 in the dirt. He's not only 0 for 7 doing this with turf horses. He hasn't hit the board with any of these, and every single one of these horses was a short price. So he's had a lot of sixth mans in these races, and they're just not only not winning, they're not hitting the board. And 0 for 7 isn't a huge sample, but none of them hitting the board and all at short prices. To me, That's a real knock on this horse.
It's a bit fishy that he didn't show any speed last time out off the layoff, and now
Awful.
immediately dropping in class. Yes, there's a lot of question marks, and this potentially is a horse that if he does get back to his speed, he's going to cause problems for my top selection, like the 9 Whites of Their Eyes or even the 3 Chicos.
And the worst thing you can have, situation you can have with an outside post with speed is to have the horse directly inside of you having speed, because that horse is going to make it impossible for you to get position early.
I completely agree with that. Race 4 on the card, a maiden special weight, 1 1/8 miles out onto the turf course. And I thought this was a pretty interesting race. The 1 Belle Cintron to the inside I thought was very interesting. Last time out going against maiden special weight company, I thought that the pace held together relatively well. And she only really got a late run on horses, whereas the winner, Truly Together, kind of made a little bit of an earlier move, and it proved to be the winning move.
And Truly Together is a good horse.
She is a good horse.
I think that was the toughest turf maiden race, at least for fillies, that we've seen down here, and older horses for sure. We've seen some nice 3-year-olds. This horse ran very well in its debut. That was a race where the pace completely held together, and every horse that was at all effective had an inside trip, and I thought Belle Cintron ran well that day. I think this horse needed its race last time. As you say, the race didn't set up. I said on Twitter last night, if Belle Cintron doesn't win this race, I should wear a dunce cap on the plane tomorrow. I cannot see past this horse. And the thing about singling it is, for me, I don't care. I can't win this race if this horse doesn't win. And maybe she won't, but I'm not winning if she loses.
Well, the 9 Hudson River Gal will probably get bet in here as well off of a second place performance when she went off as the favorite behind Villa Savoie last time out. I thought she was game. There's really no knock. She got a good trip. She really didn't see Villa Savoie. I think that filly was like a deep closer on the outside.
She came from dead last top of the stretch.
Yeah, and but she was game with a horse who was immediately to her outside. She didn't see that outside closer, and I think you have to respect a horse like this. I just think Belle Cintron has a little bit more upside.
I don't like the race that Hudson River Gal is coming out of. Listen, if I'm wrong about Belle Cintron, if we both are, if we both like her, maybe I like her a little more than you, then I think a lot of horses can win this race.
Okay, race 5 on the card. 1 mile on the turf course, 16,000 non-winners of 2 lifetime event. The 8 Puppery is the 9-5 favorite on the morning line and does seem to be very tough to beat on the drop down.
I don't know what to do with her. I picked her on top because I didn't really want Smoke and Stroll dropping down, because Smoke and Stroll, even the win at Belmont, was like, that was just a non-field. And I know the horse won, but I still don't quite get it. And she was probably going to win this race. But Puppery ran well enough 2 back. Last time out, the field was wired. She was 1 slow in there, but she didn't run that well. I put her on top with no conviction. You know, I bet your pick Zuzu last time. I couldn't make an excuse for her, and I thought that was a very weak field, and that's why I liked her last time.
Me too, and I'm just sticking with her one more time, though.
Okay.
She seems like a horse that I just have to stick with, because I agree with you. I really liked her going into her last race because I thought she was involved in a pretty decent early pace against much tougher company, 2 back. I couldn't make an excuse what happened to her last time out. Maybe she didn't like a little bit of moisture in this particular turf, where she had run on a turf that she had run well on a turf that had
but
some
she
moisture
broke her maiden in a yielding turf in Indiana.
So
that's kind of a problem.
I don't know if that's a valid point.
Yeah.
But she just seems like a sneaky horse that I have to give one more.
I thought she was last time. I thought she
was.
was sneaky last time.
Yeah.
Yet another losing sneaky opinion of mine last time.
We also have the 5 Smoke and Stroll here, who this is an interesting horse. First time on the turf, she obviously wound up victorious there last time out. She really didn't do much running. Now on the drop in class, don't you have to use a horse like this protectively?
I already covered her. I'm using her. I don't like her, but I'm using the
You
5
have
and 8.
to.
I hope I get there.
Okay, race 6 on the card.
Watch Zuzu beat me.
A restricted starter optional claimer, 7 furlongs onto the main track. And we do have a replay of the 8 Lucky Bella coming out of that most recent replay on the 14th of January.
Maybe you missed the boat not taking 2 to 1 on our last time in a 2-horse race, where I don't know how. And we said about this during the race. Why was the 2 4 to 5 and she was 2 to 1? It felt like they should have been exactly the same price at the very least. Here's what I decided about her. I don't know that she's really moving up that much in class, because, yeah, Wildcat Gaze is the horse to beat. Where's her particularly fast race? Cool Tears is improving for Graham. She's okay. And, Graham, and all kidding aside, Graham struggled to a tough meet, but he's been coming around. He's had a few winners late. I mean, the last week and a half, he's won 3 races. So he,
Big performance
not
yesterday,
surprising,
too.
right? Not surprising to see Graham Motion winning races. He's one of the better trainers in the game. She's fine in here, but I don't really like any of them. And I just thought, the 8, people might think she's cheap, and maybe she is, but I think she'll be a better price than she should be, so I put her on top.
And she's the type of filly I think you have to respect, too. I picked her third, but she's one that when they drop her down to an appropriate class level, she really does always deliver, whether it's that open condition at Monmouth, whether it was the starter 12-5 condition at Gulfstream Park West. She's competitive, and I do think that she fits this race class-wise very well and one to be respected. The 6 Wildcat Gaze, for what it's worth, Jane Sibeli will show a stat here over the past 5 years, second off the layoff on the dirt with sprinters. The numbers are very good, 32% positive ROI, about 60% finishing in the money as well. She does look to be the horse to beat.
Wow, I had this horse second off a layoff in dirt sprints. I had Jane Sibeli better than that. I had 26 for 9. Is that a 2-year stat or a 5-year stat?
5.
Okay, because I have her in a 5 years, 26 for 94.
Maybe we're looking at different formulators. No, I'm kidding.
Maybe we're living in alternate universes.
Maybe. Well,
Both of us a different universe from each other, or an alternate universe?
We did this with the Todd Pletcher stat a couple days ago, too, so I don't know.
No, I
where
have her
we're
with
looking.
huge numbers, but it's a 5-year stat. Yeah.
Regardless, huge numbers. You have to use her. This one Cool Tears to the inside. Shouldn't she get decently bet?
Yeah, she's one of the horses that can win the race. I just prefer the 8 at a better price. That's really where I went.
Okay, races 1 through 6 on this 12-race program. We're going to take a quick break. When we come back, we'll talk about the Pick 6, $2 million carryover today, right after this commercial break. Welcome back to Gulfstream today. Now taking a look at the Pick 6, big carryover, $2 million carryover, in fact. And I thought a very tough sequence. I couldn't find a single today, and I thought race 10 was virtually impossible. So I'm using a couple different horses in there and just using 2 horses. And the majority of the sequence, using 4 horses to kick us off, the 3, 6, 8, and 10, 2 deep in races 8 and 9, spreading in race 10, using just 2 horses in the final 2 legs of the sequence for an even $64 ticket. I'm interested to get to your late pick 5 ticket and see if your take on the late pick 5. But first, race 7, mile and a 16th on the turf. An interesting race because the 3 Amigo has been putting in some very good races against much tougher company in the past 2 starts. And I think this is a horse who has to be respected. I was looking at his last 2 races, and you think to yourself, did those races come out of nowhere? But his back races are actually quite decent as well.
They're okay. I don't know. It's hard because we've seen horses coming out of the Sunshine Millions turf race that were also rans that got big figures that are not running back to it, period. So it seems like whether the figure's questionable or whether it was just a race that seemed to come up, because it's a top-heavy race. I mean, Manchurian Eye is a good horse, as is Reporting Star. Those numbers work for them very well. Maybe not for the others. The time before it, this horse was running through a pond.
Yes.
So who knows? Maybe this horse likes some given the turf. It was given the turf last time out as well. So maybe this horse is better on a turf with some give in it. And maybe he's just a very improving horse. Yeah, but he was a maiden back in September. I have to use him. I want to try to beat him. I don't want to take him as the favorite. But I'm not thrilled with a horse I put on top. Do I make you happy? I'm just guessing on a horse, a 7-year-old that seems to be coming into his own. It seems odd for a 7-year-old, but he's got races. And at the end of the day, I took a horse that's got speed.
And quite frankly, there's not a lot of speed in here. So in Corey Lannery, how many times have we seen him so far at the meet go to the lead, slow the pace down? He does very well with these types of horses where nobody wants to go, and he goes and he winds up winning the race. This horse I respect as well because he has that speed, and if he goes to the lead, it could be all said and done. The 8 Eric Wheel, though, What do you do with this horse? He kind of reminds me, actually, even though Converge is a much better horse, but the same running style, just a really slow, early, deep, late closer.
He's too slow on his figs, though. He's a horse that has to really improve. But he is a new gelding. Chad, as we'll show you a stat, has exceptional numbers coming off of long layoffs in turf races. He's 5 for 15 turf routes in Gulfstream, so he wins here with a 206 ROI. So he does get him to win. But this horse is going to have to improve. I thought it was interesting he gelded him because I doubt he's looking to geld him, so maybe he felt it was an issue. I didn't know what to do with your pick flatlined. I know you like this horse, and, you know, in these kind of races, sometimes we gravitate to horses that we have a fondness for. But I got to say, even though the pace was pretty quick last time, it's not like anybody else closed. And this is the one horse that put in a run, and he might be a horse that's just improving.
Yeah, he's coming out of the race behind Seeking Alpha, who I thought ran a pretty game race, all considering as well. This is a horse when he did break his mate, and it was on a little bit of a firmer course, and I kind of like the fact that he does get back to that as well, because it almost seems like he runs a little bit closer to the pace, and with the lack of early pace, I don't think he's going to be too far off of it, so he has a little bit of positional speed.
Yeah, he was outrun last time in a fast pace.
Exactly.
I mean, this is not a totally different dynamic today.
He fits the flow of the race a little bit better today, so I'll stick with him. Again, I'm not crazy about this race. I had to use several horses to start off the pick 6.
It's a difficult race. I agree. I had a lot of trouble. Now the 8th race we come to, and we'll put up my pick 4 ticket. I'm going to use pick 5. Excuse me.
Don't get ahead of yourself.
5, 4, 3. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Bye. We'll start out. I'm going to use all 3. You didn't use the 4, but I think the 4 is a dangerous horse in here that we'll get to in a few seconds. We don't have a ton of time. 5, 7, 7, 10, 13. I didn't have as much trouble with the 10th race as you did. I'm going to live and die with those 3. 1, 3, 6, 4, 11 in the last.
Cold Grey Dawn.
I think we can go right to a replay and show you Cold Grey Dawn's last race. Cold Grey Dawn may win this race. I don't want to take the favorite breaking from the 9 outside post in these mile and 16th races. They hit the turn so bad. I just feel they're compromised, but this horse is the horse to beat.
Is the horse to beat, and we saw Awesome Dame, the eventual winner of the race, was a little bit erratic going throughout the stretch, kind of lugging out even after right-handed encouragement. But altogether, you know, no knocks against this filly. I thought she ran a pretty game race. She was probably just beaten by better. My Dear Venezuela is a horse I was informed, even the start prior to that. She looks tough, but the 7 Aurora Point, I'm intrigued by. Luis Saez now in the saddle. I know Joe Bravo is attracted to the 9 Cold Grey Dawn in here, and rightly so. The filly has been running faster races. But Kieran McLaughlin, we'll take a look at a statistic here over the past 5 years. Maiden special weight horses in their second start, sprinting to going a route of ground on the dirt, 29%, 62% in the money, and it's still a positive ROI. And I just thought that her last race was a good primer to now get at a distance and stretch out to 2 turns.
I'll be very interested to see how she gets bet, because she didn't take a nickel last time in a bad field. And it was a heavy Pletcher favorite, didn't run a step. Quickly on 4 Mo Green.
I like her too.
This horse took a ton of money in that race, a ton of money. Has to be a little bit better than it ran. You have to be afraid of that horse.
And our girl's a charmer. I know she was kind of compromised yesterday, but beyond the likes of Catherine Sophia.
She took money in the face of our girl's a charmer, and there has to be a reason.
Race 9 on the card, a nice maiden special weight, 1 mile and 1/8 on the turf course here. And we'll go back and take a look at the 7 Terralina in her debut performance, when she was narrowly defeated behind Conquest Dynasty.
This race was very easy for me. You've got Terralina, who I think ran well. I mean, Conquest Dynasty is a good horse that beat her. Tap It Together, who finished 3rd in here, is a good horse. This was one of a number of just sort of, I feel like Christophe Clements had an unlucky meet here.
Yes.
Because it's not like having a terrible meet.
No.
It's just this is just one time after another he ran races that could have won, and they just got into a tough field, or they had a little bit of a trip. He got DQ'd once, and he's just been a little unlucky. He's a guy who wouldn't surprise me if he had a 6-win week one week, just because he's had a lot of horses that were good enough to win that for whatever reason didn't do it. She's supposed to win. And I've got a Mike Maker horse off a claim who's got to improve to win. But you know what? And Mike Maker off the claim and the turf, I trust. I'm just using them both. You can have everybody else. You like Conquest City Girl, though.
I do. I like Conquest City Girl with added distance. And I don't know really what was going on. She never was encouraged to get into the game early last time out. I don't think that she should have been that far back off the pace. She wasn't that far back going
I
6
agree.
furlongs at Woodbine. So why was this filly just taken completely
We talked
out
about
of
it
the
that
game?
day. It was very
Yeah.
strange. I agree.
And overall, that day was kind of bizarre in general.
Mike Smith came here,
Yeah.
and you're being nice, and I'm a big fan of Mike's. I think Mike is a
ahead.
terrific rider, and I love the way he comes and he lets horses do what they do well. He came here and was sleepwalking through the card. He gave a number of rides that just seemed surprising, and especially from
This
a
was one
great
of them.
rider like him. And this was one of them. This horse, as you say, I mean, Miss Meteor ended up walking on the front end.
Yeah.
She's a pleasure horse that took all this money, and she got lucky to win. Clement was second with a horse that was probably
Yeah.
best in there. And I agree. I don't
And
know
not
how
to
good she
mention-
is, but he gave her no shot.
No shot. And not to mention, she was very wide going into the final turn as well. And she actually closed a little bit. She made a closing effort with no
The
encouragement.
race was falling apart at the end, but I don't.
could have been.
Here's a quick question for you, 'cause we got a lot to talk about still. Mile and an eighth might be a little far for this horse. That worries me.
It could be.
I
It
think
could
this
be.
horse
And
is more of
maybe
a 7 furlongs at Belmont is going to hit this horse right between the eyes.
I'm willing to take the shot because
you.
she was given no shot to run
I hear you.
last time
You're
out.
not wrong. I worry about the distance.
Okay, we'll move on to the 10th race we're running out of time here. A lot to talk about. An allowance optional claiming event, a mile and a 16.
I want to talk to the
on
show with you for another 2 hours.
This is a great
I'm going
card.
to start crying soon.
I know.
I'm so
well,
sad
this
about
is
leaving.
You are. This is your
I'm going back to my
swan song.
friends in New York. My good friend Jason Blewett. I miss Jason a lot. It'll be nice to get back.
Okay,
But I'll miss
well, it's going to be sad.
It is.
But we can talk about this later. We have a lot
miss
more
Dennis.
to talk to. But Dennis, of course. All right, looking at this race, I had a very tough time with. It seems like you had a better idea. I loved the one Newbie Bog today. I've been waiting for this filly to run back, and now that she would have been my single in the pick 6, and now that she's scratched, I don't know what to do.
Ever since I saw her last March at St. Cloud, I fell in love with her. St. Cloud, by the way, is a great racetrack. It overlooks Paris on a hill. It's really great. For me, Bride to Be is going to win. We have a Bride to Be. No, we don't have Bride. Bride to Be is going to either win this race or, Chad. I don't know the story, and I was saying this to you. I specifically don't ask Chad about his horses because I don't want to come here with some sort of inside information. It doesn't.
A lot of the times
it's not
it doesn't
really
pan
fair.
out.
But did he scratch the one because he thinks the 10's a real runner? I have no idea. I'm using Chad's horse in here, and you know what? This is first time on the turf for Mike Maker with a 13. That's good enough for me to use the horse.
The 13 you have to use protectively. The 9 Dia is a horse that I actually picked second. Now I kind of default into. I didn't think she had any excuses last time out. Perhaps she was
Pace a little slow.
beaten. Well, she was beaten by a pretty decent horse, an Indian Starlight there. And I think you have to use several horses protectively. The 10 Sympathy makes a lot of sense. The 13, the 9, even the 2 Summer House. I thought this horse was very weird and interesting. I know we haven't seen her for quite some time, but we haven't seen Sympathy since October of 2014 either. She is getting to the turf for the first time, and she is the inside speed.
And she has a little bit of pedigree. It's the first fall of Madame that won on the turf. Maybe she's a turf horse.
The mare's a turf sprinter, actually.
Yeah, her last win was on the goldest of gold rails. But that doesn't mean she's not a turf horse.
This is a turf race, right?
Listen, your life is not as pathetic as mine, so you don't know about gold rails from November 2014 at Aqueduct.
That's scary. That's very frightening. Okay, we'll move on
This is
to
my life.
the 11th race on the card, an allowance optional claiming event. A mile and a 16th on the main track. We'll go back and take a look at Kelly Tough, who... And then we'll look at his statistic. But this horse ran a really big race last time out.
I like this horse. I think this horse is going to be okay. He's got to obviously get a little bit faster to get it done in here, but thought he ran very well in here. You think he's coming back just 21 days after running in a very good 7 furlong field, stretches out to a mile and eighth, gets it done. Let me ask you a couple questions. Now it's 22 days until this race, and he's kind of a cop-out pick in here, and I picked him second. I have to use him. I'm just wondering if he's going to come back and run as well today. And I found a stat, and I think Eddie Plessis, he's a terrific trainer, but man, I can't overlook this stat that he's 1 for 18 coming off of maiden wins in dirt routes. And I think we can put that stat up. And for a horse that's probably the favorite in a tricky race, that's enough for me to put him second.
I agree with you. I just think he's a horse that has a lot of potential, and maybe it is a bit of a cop-out pick, but look at how tough that, or what a key race that was as we saw Mehesto come back and
Well,
run
he got a tough trip, though, and he came back and won yesterday.
And he won yesterday. But overall, we've seen horses that he's been running against: Star Hill, Bolt Hall, Mehesto, Happy's Cause, just several horses. These are very, very strong maiden special weights, and I just think he's a horse that, for him to stretch out in only his second start from 7 furlongs to 1 1/8 miles, and kind of the trip that he did get a good trip. I just think he's got a lot of potential in here. What do you do with the 2 Todd Pletcher horses who are now trying the main track for the first time?
I'm pitching them both, and I'll tell you why I'm pitching them both. It's not exactly a secret that this is not Todd Pletcher's year with 3-year-old colts. I mean, it was something that became obvious and people knew about in Saratoga. Todd, for whatever reason, I mean, it just sometimes you get at horses and they just don't turn out to be that good. I don't think Todd has to apologize to anybody. The guy has dominated the Triple Crown prep scene for the last umpteen years. In my opinion, and I could turn out to be dead wrong, but in my opinion, if Todd had dirt horses, especially ones that could go longer and be effective, he'd have run him on the dirt long before the last day of February at Gulfstream. I think he's taken a shot now. And listen, you can't blame him for taking a shot, and I'm sure Todd's been surprised too. But they're going to be overbet because of that. Neither one of them is even that good on the turf, to be honest with you. And Azar's okay, but he's a little over. He looks a little better on paper than I think he is. I just don't buy it. I just don't buy that Todd's running them and he thinks they're particularly good in the dirt. I think he's just taking a shot.
It's tough. You see Azar by Scat Daddy. I don't know. I just thought that he should have panned out a little bit more on the turf, where you have a horse like the Ford Dissident who hasn't really been running great races on the turf, but he is by Medaglia d'Oro out of that more than ready mare. I don't know. I was attracted more to the Ford Dissident than Azar in here for some reason or whatever. The 3 Fashionable Freddie is an interesting horse because he definitely is a pace of the race, and he's another one that is coming out of key races. Battery, Cherry Wine, who figured to be a very nice horse
Isn't Bar None the pace of this race? I mean, Bar None was involved in a pretty contested pace and has the rail. I like this thing because he's a Pearl Jam song. It's about the best thing I can say about him. But Fashionable Freddie, why did I pick him? Because he's going to be the best price of the horses I thought could win, and I banged my head against the wall over this race for a long time. The thing about Fashionable Freddie, let me say 2 things. I don't know how the rail was last time. It seems questionable on February 10th. It's one of those days that enough horses did okay towards the inside, but I still think you were better off outside. But he also busted through the gate before the race, and that never really helps a horse. And I think that compromised him. He wasn't beating Battery anyway. And I think his maiden race was good enough. I want to give him one chance. I'm not in love with him, but I'm not in love with anybody here.
You want to give Nick Zito another chance,
and you know what? It's only one more race for me. Nick's got nobody in the last race, so I got to pick my buddy Nick, you know? And honestly, I think he's the best priced horses I like, and all kidding aside, I think he's got a little ability, and I'm hoping he runs well.
I agree with you. I respect him in there as well.
I felt better seeing you had him in your 1, 2, 3s, and I wasn't totally on an island.
No, he's not impossible at all. The 12th and final race on today's card, maiden 35, 7.5 furlongs on the turf. And we'll go back and we'll take a look at St. Bernardine and this filly's debut performance, because she did not get off to a good start whatsoever.
I feel like this race I want to show, it's sort of like, there she is, coming out of the gate. I bet her, I needed her for a big score in this race, and I'm sorry. She would have won, because not only did she break 5 lengths behind the field, but she's trying to make a move. She gets shut off there. She's got to regather herself. I mean, she's not that good. The door closes on her right there. And it's just like, you know, geez, can I just get a break once? Because the horse that won the race, it was legitimate, and it wasn't a very good race. But she was supposed to win this day. Pinchon has these sort of sneaky good numbers, these kind of first-time turfers. I'm scared of the 4 Flashtastic, the drop down for Brian Lynch, and I'm a huge fan of Brian Lynch. I think he does a terrific job. But I got to put the 11 on. I got to close it out with a horse, even though it was the last time was a time for me.
You were burned last time out.
Yeah, I got to put this horse on top, but I'm scared of the 4.
I agree with you. In terms of the pick 5, how many horses did you use?
Just used the 4 and 11. You know, okay, I'm not saying I stand on solid ground. I thought George Weaver's first of the 3 was a little bit dangerous. You've got Chuck Simon's or Smart Romance. So I'm not. What do you like about the 7, by the way?
Well, Smarty Jones, but out of a mare who is actually 0 for 5 on the turf and hasn't
Yes,
really
I'm aware of
produced
that.
any turf
But
winners.
Not for Love is in there, and you are
Yes.
a Maryland person. If you're a Maryland person, you love
You
Not,
have
Not
to
for
remember
Love
Not for
is
Love.
one of the. He was a really great sire.
He was,
I love
yeah.
Not for Love. I agree.
He's great.
And
The interesting thing was the turf workout, in my opinion. They put this horse on the turf on the 20th of February, 47 flat, best out of 35 that day. Maybe something piqued an interest for Chuck Simon to try this horse on the turf. It's reason enough for me to at least use him a little bit.
was 80-1 in the dirt first time. He better be looking because it's synthetic next for this horse. It doesn't run very well in here. It's nice to see Smarty Jones. You think of John Service, and you talked to him yesterday. I saw him at the track, and it's nice to see him back with a good horse. And
Yeah.
you know, with Catherine Sophia, as we get ready to say goodbye, Songbird is a true monster, and she's the star of the 3-year-olds in this country, a genuine star. And I don't think any of us are saying that we think Catherine Sophia is necessarily better than her, but the fact that we're even having the discussion that she could be in the class of Songbird is about as big a compliment as you could pay to a horse like Catherine Sophia,
And you
or
look
any
at
horse.
you look at the 3-year-olds in general, you know, boys and girls, Catherine Sophia, Songbird as well. To see them battling it out eventually, hopefully, will be amazing. And a couple weeks down the road, we get to see Mo Heyman and Nyquist battle it out in the Florida Derby as well. It's kind of a cool parallels that are kind of converging at the same time.
I agree. I saw somebody complaining they shouldn't meet the Derby. It's nice when horses actually develop a rivalry. And what could, you know, everybody, and obviously American Pharoah is such a great phenomenon, but I lived through a firm Denali Dar and Sunday Silence and Easy Goer. And, you know, I mean, we're still arguing about Sunday Silence and Easy Goer, West Coast, East Coast, and even guys, jerks like me, begrudgingly admitting what a great horse Sunday Silence was, and he was a great horse. This is what racing's about. Rivalries is what really gets interesting.
Rivalries, it's just such an interesting dynamic. Like you said, we have East Coast, West Coast pairing up here in a couple of weeks. It's been so fun, and I'm really, I think we have some really nice, especially the filly division, the 3-year-old filly division, some really nice, talented horses.
It's great to have things to look forward to, and that's a lot of what horse racing's about.
Okay, well, enough with that discussion. That was a nice little tangent that we did have.
I'm good at tangents. I'm a tangent guy.
Yes, including painting a nice picture of St. Cloud, too. St. Cloud.
St. Cloud is a great place, I'm telling you. It's not
hopefully
easy
I
to
can
get
make it
there,
there.
get back into the city, but that's another story.
Well, Larry's found some friends over there, so we have to pull
It's about time.
away
About
so
time.
we can
Larry
give
now
you
has 2 friends.
Scratches and changes. That's a wrap for us here on Gulfstream today. Races 1 through 12. Once again, we have that carryover in the pick 6, over $2 million. We're going to take a quick break. We'll be back for all of those races, but best of luck on today's program.
Our day begins early, preparing for the